Jess. I thought I would talk a little bit today about some of my favorite cacti and succulents that I have in my collection and sort of go over what defines each of them as a succulent or cacti, because they are very similar, but you know, there are some things that set them apart. And just kind of talk a little bit about each plant and introduce you guys to them if you haven't seen them before. So yeah. Okay, so before I get into the collection and talking a little bit more about some of my favorites in here, I figured I would kind of try and clarify a little bit some of the differences between cacti and succulents. So cacti tend to come from more extreme conditions, you know, so really hot deserts, really dry, you know, just those really intense conditions that we think of when we think cactus usually. And succulents tend to come from, you know, there's desert succulents and then there's semi-desert succulents. So they can come from, you know, like living in the jungle, mountainsides, seaside, lakes. So there's quite a variety when it comes to succulents. And I think the biggest thing to remember is that succulents are not cacti, but cacti are succulents. So cactus, from my understanding, they're actually a subcategory of succulents. So that's kind of one thing to keep in mind when you're thinking or talking about these types of plants. Another really big thing that sets these plants apart, and in my opinion that makes it the easiest to tell whether or not you should call something a succulent or a cactus, is that cactus tend to have these things called areoles, and from these areoles are spikes. So areoles are basically bumps on the cactus, and from those bumps there's a cluster of spikes on them. And so when I say that, it's not to say succulents don't have any spikes, because I do have succulents that have spikes, as you'll see today. But like I said, cactus, the really big thing with them are those areoles, or those little bumps with the spikes on them. So generally when I'm looking at these plants and I'm, you know, trying to classify them myself, that's the biggest thing I look for. And generally if I don't see that, but there are spikes, I'm gonna go ahead and assume it's a succulent. Okay, so the first cactus I'm gonna go ahead and talk about is this blue torch cactus. Pretty sure that's what it's called. So these things are native to Brazil. They, you know, in the wild they can get up to like 33 feet tall. So these things get pretty big. They grow fairly quickly if you can have them outside. Here in Ohio, I cannot. So I actually keep all of my, you know, cactus succulents inside. These guys definitely can tolerate, or actually I should say love, full sun. They can, you know, withstand temperatures of, you know, upward toward 125 degrees. So when you put these guys outside, or if you're gonna put them out in your landscaping or anything like that, you don't have to worry about them getting bleached or burned. Burning maybe if they've always been raised indoors and they've never really been exposed to full sun like that. You should put it outside for a couple hours each day and work its way up to being fully exposed to the sun all of the time. But yeah, I don't think, you know, bleaching and burning is anything to worry about with these plants. They're really easy to care for as long as you don't overwater them and you give them the light that they want. I keep all of these right on a windowsill that gets the most light and the most sun in my house. These guys do get about, you know, all my succulents here, with exception to a couple, do get about 4 or 5 hours of morning sun, and then throughout the day they get really, really bright indirect light, and that definitely seems to be enough for them. This guy is actually getting new growth on the top. So yeah, they just have really beautiful blue color. I think that's why they're one of my favorites. These actually get bluer with age. So if you get a small one, or even at this one, if you kind of like look towards the base, it is a little greener compared to having that really bright, you know, blue vibrancy at the top. So that's something to also look forward to with these guys, is as they get bigger, the bluer and just more stunning they get, you know. And then they have these orange spikes, and I think the contrast between the two is just absolutely beautiful. So I think if you're, you know, wanting to get into cactus, or if you're looking for a cool kind of just eye-catching cactus to get, this is definitely one of the ones you guys should get. They're really easy to get your hands on. You know, I got this in store at a nursery, so I definitely know, you know, it's not something that you have to hunt for, I guess. So okay guys, so the next plant I'm going to talk about is the Madagascar palm. I know you guys can't see this in its fullness right here next to me, but as the name implies, this is from Madagascar. It's native to Madagascar. It is not a palm, it's actually a succulent. And I love these so much, I actually have 3 of them. Here's a little tiny baby one, and then here's the, you know, middle one, I guess. And then there's this one. And so yeah, if you know, these guys can tolerate full sun. You can have them in an outdoor landscaping type thing. If you look at mine on this side, it's actually missing quite a few of its leaves, and that's because when I bought it and I went to plant it, it like toppled over and half the leaves came off. Like, these leaves pop off super easily, so I try not to move this plant much or touch it at all because I don't want the leaves to come off. I do remember reading that these plants actually, I looked it up, they photosynthesize through their trunk and not so much their leaves, which I guess would make sense because in the fall and winter, these plants tend to drop most or all of their leaves. So they'll just kind of be this trunk of spikes. And then, you know, in the spring and the summer, they grow their leaves back. So yeah, with these guys, they're just really cool to have. I think they're super unique looking. You know, they have these like really spiky trunks, but they still have this greenery. And I think that's something that's kind of rare to see with succulents and cacti, are just normal green leaves like these. So I don't know, I just think they're super unique, and when I first saw this in store, I was like, oh my god, I have to have it. So these are another really common plant to find. You know, I think in my experience, the nurseries I've been to, 9 times out of 10 they have, you know, these little ones at least. I actually haven't seen a lot of nurseries have them kind of in this like medium big size. I've either seen them where they're like $500 because they're, you know, 12 feet tall, or I see them for like $5 because they're this small. So yeah, they're definitely a really awesome plant. They're really easy to care for, you know, because they are a succulent. It's just that thing when it comes to cacti and succulent, you have to make sure you have these types of plants in really well draining soil. I actually, you know, any cactus succulent soil I buy, I always I'll do like a mixture of 50% of the soil, and then I do a 50% perlite, because even though those cactus and succulent soils say that they're good draining and, you know, they're meant for these types of plants, generally when I look at most of the soils, in my opinion, they just don't have enough perlite or like sandiness to them. So I just like to add extra perlite just in case, because I have noticed that when I don't add the perlite and I use my moisture meter on these plants, they tend to definitely hold more moisture. And that's just something I don't want to risk with these types of plants, because they do get root rot so easily, and a plant like this rotting would just be absolutely devastating because it's so beautiful. And with kind of their slowness, you know, their medium slowness of growth, I just really would be disappointed if something this big, you know, were to get something like that. So, but honestly, it's a really easy plant. You can grow these indoors. I used to have this under a grow light, but I recently moved it in front of the window just because I felt like the grow light wasn't really hitting the trunk enough, and it was coming from above and just really on the leaves. So I figured maybe if I put it in front of the window, it would do a little bit better. It would get some more direct sun there. So, but honestly, it's still been growing. You know, they kind of grow new leaves from the center on the top here, and it's been, I mean, these new leaves here were all really small when I first got this plant about maybe like 2 months ago. So yeah, I think they're awesome plants to have. Next, I'm going to be talking about amyx. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that when it comes to succulents and cacti, euphorbias are absolutely my favorite. Euphorbias are like, every time I see one, it is seriously just the coolest thing ever. And I'm pretty sure, if not all, the majority of euphorbias are succulents. So these right here are succulents, even though they totally look like cacti. So whatever, I'll do a close-up of these so you guys can see it better. But yeah, so these generally, they're native to Mexico. Here, I also have my little green one. So this is a green one, the green Euphorbia amic, which is just a normal one. And then this is the variegated Euphorbia amic. Anyway, so yeah, these guys are native to Mexico. You know, in the wild, they get crazy big. Indoors, I honestly think, I mean, I've seen them pretty giant grown inside. So I feel like, you know, these guys can get pretty big inside. I hope they do. I look forward to it. But again, you know, they're pretty easy to take care of. You know, cactus succulents, just don't overwater it, have really good, really well draining soil. These guys can also tolerate full sun. Again, if you started growing these inside, you should try and just work their way outside just so you don't burn them, you know, because that's not fun for the plants, and I don't think you want your plants to be burned. But yeah, these are another one that you can grow in a natural landscape if you have the ability to, you know, if you live somewhere, not Ohio. These guys, you know, the majority of these cacti and succulents that I say you can grow outside, if it gets like, if you guys get like crazy snow, you know, and it's like freezing cold outside in the winter, you're likely not going to want to do this. Most succulents and cacti can't really go below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, generally. Usually there's some, you know, that can tolerate 20 degrees down to 20 degree Fahrenheit, but these guys definitely aren't going to love that. But yeah, these are just awesome. Definitely the variegated one is my favorite just because it's so unique looking. These do grow pretty fast. I've already noticed in the maybe month that I've had this, there's already been a lot of new growth at the top here. So that's something that's really exciting. I just think that I had this misconception before I started collecting these types of plants that they grow like super crazy slow, and that's actually, it hasn't been the case. I've seen in the, you know, 3 months that I've had some of these that they just grow crazy fast. Like, you know, most of them do, with the exception of some of them growing relatively slow, but there's none where I'm like, you know, I haven't seen any movement on them at all. But yeah, these are awesome. And honestly, the green amic is a little bit easier to get your hands on than the variegated. I noticed if I do find the variegated ones in store, they're usually really super expensive, and because they're so big. Like, I've seen one that was maybe this size in the store, maybe a little bit bigger, for almost like $200, and that's definitely not what I paid for this one. So I recommend, you know, if your local nurseries don't carry this at all, which they may not, because like I mentioned, even when I do find them in nurseries here, they tend to be small, and there's very few of them. There's maybe like one, and then they go really fast. Or they're too big and too expensive and nobody wants to buy it, or nobody, you know, can buy it. So yeah, I recommend looking for these ones online just because that's where I've had more luck with it. But, you know, maybe if you guys live in a place like Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, they might be easier to get your hands on. They might be more affordable there. I don't know. So yeah, but these are awesome. I think, again, this is another great beginner cactus to have, and it's something that's just super eye-catching. It's really unique looking. I think this is definitely one of the most attention-grabbing succulents that I have. So yeah, I think everyone should have one of these. They're pretty freaking awesome. Okay. So the next cactus I'm going to talk about is this Palaeskia chichipi. I don't know if that's how you say it, but anyway, that's how I'm going to say it for right now until I get corrected. But so this is actually a cactus. It does have this areole, you know, this raised up bump with its clusters of spikes on it. So this is classified as a cactus. These are native to central Mexico, and they can get about up to 13 feet, probably taller, honestly. Indoors, I don't really know their max height that they get to. You know, I do know they're very slow growing though. From what I've read online, these things grow like incredibly slow. So I'm gonna go ahead and guess that since it's in a pot and it's inside, the conditions are a little less than ideal. It's gonna grow a little bit extra slow. So I guess if you're looking for something that's not gonna get too big too fast, this is a good choice for you. I don't know how abundant these are. You know, I don't know how how much you can find them in nurseries. I've only seen this one time at one nursery, and the nursery I've only ever been to one time because it is outside of town and it's a bit of a drive for me. So I just so happened to see this there, and I was like, well, since I'm here, I need to get it. And so I got it. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really seen these as small cacti, but I'm sure you can order one. I've definitely seen them online, like Etsy, you know, people sell these. So they're just an awesome cactus. Again, I think they're, you know, the classic cactus. When people think of cactus, I think this is the type of thing that pops into their head. They got that really classic shape and color, but it's still so eye-catching, you know. It's just something that I think people are just amazed by, and I like those plants a lot, you know. I like the really common plants, but I do also like to have plants that are just absolutely really different, you know. And like I said, although this is a classic thing, it's different in its own way. So like I said, if you're looking for a slow growing, cool cactus to get, this is something I definitely recommend. Next, I'm going to talk about this variegated ghost bone or variegated dragon bone. I've seen them be called both before. Anyway, so these are actually native to Asia. Like I mentioned, this is a variegated one. The normal one looks just like this, but it's all green, and it usually kind of has these like faint white stripes on it. They're really cool looking. I just haven't got one yet. The variegated one is a little more rare, a little harder to find generally. I definitely had to go on a hunt for this one. I've seen them a lot online, like Etsy. They are a little pricier. I ended up driving about an hour south from here to a little town to go to this like boutique to get this one. I saw them posted online and I was like, oh my god. So impulsively I went and got it. Stereotypical me. Anyway, these things honestly don't really like full sun. If you're gonna give it any sun, I think it would do best with like morning sun, but that direct, really hard afternoon sun might be a little too much. With the green one, the normal one, you might end up bleaching the plant, which you don't really want to do. It's not that fun. They do recover from bleaching, generally in my experience, because I have bleached a couple of my cacti. And they do bounce back after maybe 2 weeks. But yeah, so this is actually a succulent. This is a euphorbia, and they're really awesome. They, you know, they're just a really unique look with their color pattern, and I don't know, I think it's different, and I'm excited to see these grow. These do grow a little more like bushier, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. They kind of grow a lot of stems, and they do get fuller, whereas, you know, like something like the amic, generally, I can't always say that. I guess that's not a good example. But most of the time I see amics, they're just kind of like a straight up cactus, or like this one over here. It mostly grows straight up with a couple of like arms coming off. These, I generally, when they get bigger, I see grow a lot more stemmy, and then their stems grow stems, and anyway, they just get a lot bushier. So really awesome plant to have. Again, I think it's really eye-catching and super unique. Treat it, water it, just like any other succulent, cacti, you know, pretty low maintenance. You just got to keep an eye on it. They do get these little leaves at the top, but they don't last super long. They tend to drop off after a little bit of time, but generally when they're growing, they'll get those little leaves, and then, you know, when they kind of go dormant again, those leaves will fall off. So, okay, so next I'm going to talk about the Euphorbia drupathera, I'm pretty sure is what it's called. It's this plant right back here. I'm not going to pull it up in front of me because, for one, it's just super tall. And on top of it, when I was moving it into this room, it generally lives out in the living room, but when I was moving it in here, it became really top heavy and seemed like I want to topple over. So right now it's just kind of leaning on that wall over there and living its best life, so we're going to leave it right there. Anyway, those plants though, they're native to Guinea, but they don't really want full sun. They kind of prefer that partial sun, really bright shade. So right now, I keep mine in the living room. It gets about maybe 2 hours of afternoon sun through the window right there. And then from morning to night though, it does get super bright and direct light, and it seems to be enjoying its little spot right there. Again, it is a euphorbia, so it's a succulent, so you don't, with all these plants, I'm gonna really knock it in there, you don't need to be watering them too much because you don't want them to rot. But I just thought it was worth mentioning. When I was looking up these plants, trying to learn more about them, I saw that So with euphorbia, the sap that comes from them, it's usually an irritant to your eyes and to the skin. So if you're planting a euphorbia or something like that and you so happen to break a piece off and that white milky sap comes out, try not to touch it, wipe it off with like a rag or something, or, just try to avoid it. It's not going to kill you, but I don't exactly know what it's going to do to your skin. I just know it's going to irritate it, so might as well avoid it best you can. Anyway though, I was reading that in, its native area, the people there use it for medicinal uses. They'll use it as like a topical treatment, the latex from the stem. They'll use it topically for like snake bites, bug bites, stuff like that. But I was also reading that they like to use that latex, whatever this, I guess it's like a sap. I don't know exactly what to call it. But yeah, they use this latex that comes from the stem and they mix it with oil and I guess they apply it to their eye and it gives them visual effects and it kind of sounds like it would be like some sort of like psychedelic trip. But it can like severely damage your eyeball, I guess. So depends on how much fun you want to have and if the risk is worth it. But I definitely don't recommend anyone trying that just because you don't want to lose your eyeball, and I'm not 110% sure on that information. I just thought it was interesting a plant like that could be used for some sort of purpose or like medicinal use. I also read that, again, extracts from the latex apparently have been seen to prevent like replication of HIV-1 and HIV-2 strands. So I definitely thought that was something that needs more research. I couldn't find more on it though, I found like 2 or 3 things about it, but nothing that really went into depth or into how that was tested, I guess. So, but anyway, I just thought it was something really unique about that plant because that's not really anything I hear about any of these other plants, But yeah, so I recommend having one of those. Obviously, I would not mess with it in any form. I wouldn't try to extract anything from it or try anything like that just because there hasn't been enough research done on it in my opinion, and there's also like a little bit of a give and take with it just because if it is ingested, it has been recorded that it can make you vomit and like really sick. So it's just, I wouldn't mess with it, Also, I will say that is not a plant I've seen often. I haven't really looked for it on Etsy, I guess, so I can't really say about its presence online. I know you can definitely order them online though. That plant though, I've only seen it at one nursery and they had 2 of them, and I really wanted it when I first saw it, but I was like, I kind of didn't want to spend the money on it. And then like 2 months went by, or a month went by, and this nursery has a really big sale going on and they were both still there. So I was like, might as well get it now, it's cool. So when I brought it home, I just really like seeing outside the nursery and seeing it in the house, and I don't know, just living with it, I really started to like it a lot more, more than I already had. So I don't know, I just think it's really unique. It's like a tree succulent that I just feel like isn't seen often, so definitely a plant I think everyone should have, and I definitely think it's a plant that needs more research or something like that. Cool, so I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at my collection with me, at least at my favorites that I have here. I do hope to make another video just going through my whole collection of cacti and succulents, although that might be a very long video. But yeah, hopefully you guys did learn a thing or two from me going through some of these and talking a little bit about them. I would love it if you guys could like and subscribe to my page, and I'll see you next week.